As far as public comment, now Steve Little's on the
Okay, I was going to say, I thought Stephen got it.
All righty, well, we'll begin. Mr. Carlson, if you'll lead us in our opening prayer, then Mr. Johnson, please lead the next one.
Our most gracious and heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to come together and take care of town's business. We ask that you be with us, lead us and guide us, that we do not offend, but we take care of the business that you see fit. Go with us throughout the rest of this meeting. Lead us and guide us. And pray in Jesus' precious name we do and humbly pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to leave this order. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, public comments. We do not have none? Okay. So, I do have a couple. One, our 4th of July fireworks was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was. People were very happy. I had tons and tons of phone calls and texts, emails, thanking us for doing something that others would not do.
And there was no outbreak of
No.
because of it.
So everybody stayed in their vehicle.
Yeah.
Ain't no big deal. All right, so I wanted to congratulate Mr. Lyle for his help in that, because he pretty well manages the fireworks, and I want to go ahead and mention that. Also, too, I want to mention the community forum and the OFF who've done is that correct? They've done the work at the depot. I want to go ahead and recognize them. They've done a marvelous, marvelous job. Which organization was it, or was it both of them together?
I think multiple people collaborated to.
Okay. That's why I was trying to find the name for who was in charge, but I got community forum was one and OFF was another one. I think it was just a group of volunteers.
Great to see the community get engaged. That was great turnout.
Yes, most definitely. We want to recognize that. I have as far as public comments. Under old business, we'll move on to old business. Under old business, I got off the phone a while ago with the Bridge Brothers. COVID-19 has made a huge impact on them on materials, plus the engineers on the foundations for the ballards for the bridges. That just got completed this past week, and he's supposed to email me the drawings either tomorrow or the next day. He said as far as construction beginning, it looks like about the second week of September.
How long will it take him to get it done?
He said it won't take him but like 3 or 4 weeks. But he said everything right now is 10 weeks out. He said it don't matter what it is, they're 10 weeks out. And he said because of the erosion that we've been having down there, he said they've had to change some of the drawings for the foundations for the bridges. All right, the engineers, he said the engineers were a little frightened because they know they're going to have to do it and it'll be right. And because of the erosion that's happening so fast down there, they're worried that they're going to just have to go bigger and better on the foundations. So,
I think that was just something that we were
going to just discuss and look over, because we had a table. We had a table. We did not say we were going to make a decision or nothing. Mr. Lyle has come up with the figures that you have for you on what it costs. Pounds. And this is something. Can I get one?
Yes.
Okay. And so this way, you guys look over that, and that way we'll discuss that later. All right. Anything else?
Update on the Taurus patrol car.
Okay.
Of course, we knew that it blew up again, and Twisted Rod had diagnosed it that the turbos looked like they were out again. So this is like 14 turbos, I think, it's gone through. You pour the oil right out of it. Back in 2018, I had started a buyback with Ford. They said that they would like to try one more thing by putting a brand new motor and exhaust from the manifold. I think they went about halfway back. They didn't go all the way to see if that worked before they did a buyback. I called Ford when we found out about the cars a few weeks ago, and we've started another buyback. We've got a new case number. They wanted it hauled to Asheville Ford for diagnostic. Right now they're in the process of doing that. I had a call from the service manager while we were in the office talking, and so I missed his call. I tried to call him back, and they were already gone for the day. But maybe he's going to give us some news in the morning as far as the diagnostic, what's wrong with it. He's looked over the case number and case files from Ford. So right now it's just a waiting game on what Ford might do to help offset the cost, because like we've talked about, that car we've paid for twice, if not more, with all the stuff that we've had to do to it. Every time those turbos go out,
Oh, yeah.
it's been nothing but a lemon from day one. Now you get lemons in every make. I'm not saying the one's any better than the other, but I think this car was made on a Monday, and it's just been a nightmare.
Nothing but constant.
Now, it being a V8 with twin turbos wasn't really the right pick for the town to be a cruiser in town, because those kind of ponies need to be up on the interstate running. And we just don't need that. But we'll see what Ford will do, and then we'll go from there, because we're going to have to replace one.
Yeah.
But the Tahoe's getting pretty good miles on it. All we have now is the Tahoe and the Explorer, and we're going to have to think about replacing one or the other. Now, if we can get some money out of Ford or something for at least a down payment, anything will help, because that thing is shot.
Anything's better than nothing.
It ran 17,000 miles after it got the new motor put in. And it's a 2015, it's only got 70,000 miles on it. It's been in the shop more than it's been on the truck. So that's where we're at on that. And as soon as I find out, get any more information, I'll let y'all know.
Okay. Anybody have anything else before we go on to new business?
What about the guys? Are they still trying to work something?
Okay.
The guys are.
Yes. I'll give you an update on that. Talked to another engineering firm, and according to his email, the permits for drawing the water from the river, like we had suggested, said no problem. That's a no-brainer. He said the drain work going back to the river, he said there would have to be some work there. But he said what we're wanting to draw from the river and drain back to the river, he said it's no problem for the amount of money that we have available to spend. He's going to go ahead and try to get up some figures and a plan and get back with it.
Well, I need to get in touch with Appalachian Regional, because that $100,000 was approved a while back.
Yeah.
And I need to find out if there's a deadline. I don't want to leave any money on the table.
No.
So I'll get in touch with them.
Make sure they
and make sure that there's
to
not
see
a
what they was
time.
waiting on, what plan we
What
want.
we're waiting on, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this one here sounds like it's going to do good. They're going to draw it from right there at the river, and it will be a sink basin, pretty well similar to where you can't see it, but it'll draw from there and tie into the existing, so that way we can still use the water that we're getting free now. And that way, if we ever need it, if we have a line break, so it'll be good. All right. Anything else?
Have a thermal meeting Thursday. It's going to be virtual. And it's just a regular board of directors meeting, so there's nothing major there. Meta has finally gotten my new email, and they're putting me in the loop on that too. And as soon as they schedule their next meeting, I'll be representing them for it on that one too. We're trying to get back into the swing of things. This leukemia has really kicked us, but you know, we've been blessed. It's in remission, and I feel better. Of course, I've been forced to retire, but I can give more time to town. I can come down here 2 or 3 hours a day if I need to. So anything that comes up, I'm here to do whatever I need to do for y'all.
Good. We're glad you're doing well on your health.
Thank you.
That's what everybody's praying for.
We're blessed.
All righty. We will go on to new business now. This will be Steve Little and Dan Pierce for the outside. If you would have them come in, please.
Together or individual? How are we doing that with the?
It's the same.
Bring them in together or individual?
Well, the two of them come in. If the two of them together, they can stand 6 feet apart.
Yes, with that project that we're working on, you guys.
Right.
To the right, when you step there and open the coverage, you'll see a blue square.
Okay.
That one.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good evening, good evening.
Good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. This is Dan Pierce. Dan is a professor of history at UNC Asheville, and he and I have been friends for 40 years at least, since I had hair and was about that tall. I've known Dan. So Dan made something of himself. He's a published author of the highest order, and is very well respected, a member of the faculty at UNC. So he's going to.
All right, sir. Floor is yours.
Okay, all right. Well, y'all know Steve well, and Steve and I, as it turned out, unbeknownst to each other, shared a vision for something, and then we have just very recently, it's amazing how quickly this has all moved, but put together a committee that we're calling the Rail Committee. It stands for Railroad and Incarcerated Labor Memorial Committee. And the people on that committee include Chief Melvin Lyon, Chief Eric Boyce of the UNC Asheville Police Force. Y'all may be familiar with the Boyce family from Marion. Ray McCassin, who's a retired CFO at McDowell Tech. Roanne Bishop, who's the director of the Mountain Gateway Museum. Ashley McGee Whittle, who's a native of Old Fort and is at Special Collections at UNC Asheville. Darren Waters, who's the executive director of community engagement at UNC Asheville. Jim Stokely, the president of the Wilma Dykeman Legacy. Wilma Dykeman is a pretty famous author who wrote about the building of the railroad through here. Ann Chesky Smith, the executive director of the Western North Carolina Historical Association, and Jeff Futch, the regional supervisor for the Western Office of the North Carolina Division of Natural and Cultural Resources. So Steve and I speak on their behalf here today, and let me publicly thank Chief Lytle for the work that he's done in support of this. But we're here to ask permission of the town Board of Aldermen to construct a memorial to the thousands of inmates who constructed the railroad up the mountain. It's something that Steve and I live at Ridgecrest and have spent, before I moved about 5 years ago there, I'd spent a lot of time at Camp Ridgecrest and at Ridgecrest Conference Center, and the railroad has been a part of my life since I was probably about 4 years old. And Steve has had an obsession, I think, with the railroad.
That's a good word.
There you go.
Ever since he was about 9. So, and I'm up and down Mill Creek Road and the Greenway all the time, and I often thought about the people that made that railroad possible, that amazing engineering there. And there are people right over here. Major Wilson has a memorial, and then there's Andrews Geyser, in a way, I guess we can look at as a memorial to the railroad itself in many ways, but there's no real mention of the thousands of mostly men who actually did the work, did the amazing work of constructing that. Most of these were former slaves. They were, in effect, re-enslaved by a system that convicted them of minor crimes and then sentenced them to long time in places like this. So it wasn't their choice, but despite they labored under unbelievably difficult conditions, dangerous, unsanitary. They were housed together in boxcars. Disease was rampant. And of course, the labor that they did with running that railroad up the mountain, the hazards were extreme in terms, and they were using nitroglycerin. Some of the first uses of nitroglycerin. At least 139. That's according to the penitentiary records. At least 139 of those men died and were buried along the tracks. And probably, as Steve says in the documents you have, many more than that. Others remained alive. And despite the treatment, they made heroic efforts in terms of it's just an amazing story of that railroad going up the mountain. But again, there's just virtually no mention of the work that these people did, other than a part of a sentence on the state historical marker at Swannanoa Gap from the Swannanoa Tunnel, where it says convict. It was built with convict labor. I think it's something that says. So what we're proposing is a memorial at Andrews Geyser, which is the appropriate site, not only as a place of memorials, but also one of the largest prison camps, convict camps, was located there around Knob. You don't know exactly where, but right in that vicinity, and there are probably, again, untold graves of these men in that area. We'd like to pattern the memorial after the memorial that the town put up in '76, I believe.
Well, no, it wasn't then, but I forget what year it was.
The one that's there, the stone,
attractive one,
yeah,
with the river rock and all.
Right.
And we'd like to propose to place the memorial kind of to the right of that, opposite across the gravel path there, and so it'd be almost like a gateway into the.
That'd be great.
How will that line up with the
That'd be
Sons of
fine, 'cause
Confederates?
As a matter of fact, if you're to the right of the monument there that you was talking about, that would be right in front of that set of stairs. So that right.
If I could, this is a picture that I took.
It's right in front of the utility pole.
Yeah.
There.
I was standing right about at
Yeah.
close to the
Right,
Confederate
the stairs
monument.
come down between the two. There.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was standing right about at the Confederate monument when I took that
That'd be a
one.
great spot.
Yeah, and that's Dan standing there to mark where.
Yeah. That would be great. 'Cause like I said, like you said, that would be probably like a gateway.
Yes.
Because what we're intending is to make it as a memorial for all. And slowly but surely we're getting there. So yours would be one of many. So that'd be great.
Well, and we envision in terms of the style that using that native stone like that for this, and then there would be a plaque of some kind that, on the front that would, and we would submit the wording to you before that goes up.
I would love to see us able to bury that electric up there and get rid of that pole.
Yeah, well, that's our
That's a big
intention.
part of
That's
the-
part of the deal we want
grant.
to run for the power. All of it be in ground, all of our power.
Because that's
Get
nice.
rid of power poles.
And we've got an approval from ARC for $100,000 to go towards a secondary water source. And right now
That just
we're
makes
waiting
my
on-
heart sing.
We're
That is-
the plans and all and engineering to get it done. But if the money's there, I just got to make sure we don't lose it. I don't want to leave money on the table. but I love it up there at Andrews Geyser, and I'm so glad that it was named after me. But I think a memorial up there would be awesome. And how much money have y'all raised towards this? Anything?
I'm not aware of anything
We have,
yet.
well, we have a tentative commitment from the Will Knighton Legacy of about $500.
Okay. Do you have any idea of what kind of cost you're looking at? Over
I have requested some information from Greg Daniels at Blue Ridge Memorials, and he's gathering some stuff together,
Okay.
but I don't have a number yet. I'm just sort of off the top of my head projecting that we'd be looking at about $3,000. That's just a guess.
I have a great idea. I would not hinder that in any way, shape, or form. Of course, we'd have to approve it, but after that, I would love to be able to look at our budget and see if there is some money we can throw towards that also.
Well, that'd be very, very generous if you're able to do that. But it is our hope that we did not want to be a burden.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
It's
taxpayers
just,
to vote for.
you know, it's a great idea, it's a great plan, and it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
And if we can come up with some money to put with it, then, you know, that's skin in the game too. So,
Will there be a mention of the person's names? That you said that there was 139.
That died, we don't know.
Oh, we don't know.
y'all have any idea?
Yeah, there are a
Yeah.
few names. The only mention of names we found actually, Ann Chesky Smith, who was at the Swannoa Valley Museum, did some research, and she found some names in the newspapers of a handful.
Yeah, that's sad.
So these are, and we are actually. There's some rumors that there was a mass grave at the west end of the tunnel, and we're looking into possibility of doing that. Western Carolina has those ground penetrating radar equipment, and
Are you looking to excavate it out, or
Well,
just find it?
Just find it
just
first.
find it.
and
Yeah,
then-
yeah, find it.
See.
And so we you know, we'll have to get permission of who, and I've kind of looked that up, and I think part of it maybe belongs to Ridgecrest.
I think it does. I've been there. There was a lady, elderly even by my standards, showed me several years ago the spot that her grandmother had shown to her, where the story was the inmates who were killed when there was a cave-in on the day March 11, 1879, when the two crews met under the tunnel and pounded through and opened it up. And later that same day, again, there's no hard and fast evidence, but strong suggestions, enough that I believe it did happen. But she has shown me this spot. I've been there. It's just a rhododendron thicket right now, and you'd never, ever imagine that was a burial spot. But we don't
know for sure, but we
With the inmates, was that state or federal?
State. Yeah.
Was state no?
Yeah, they built a penitentiary in the 1840s or 1850s, and then after the war there was no money, and so they had, plus the system was created where to basically control the former slaves, to keep them from wandering around, and they, arrested people for vagrancy, and then sentenced them 3 years of hard labor, just stuff like that, and all kinds of trumped up charges. So they had all these people, and of course this whole what's called the convict lease system, which was all over the South, which was pretty horrible. But in this case, it was they weren't leased. The state wasn't leasing them; they were using them for their own project. This was the state project. This part was the state project. And
Guys, what do you think?
I think it's great. I'd love to have your names. But Mr. Lytle, he's on this committee, so he'll keep us in touch.
Well, I make a motion that we give permission to put the the memorial up there.
Who wants to second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Very good, gentlemen.
I'd also
Thank you.
like to make a motion that we look to see if there's some funds that we can help erect this between, around $1,000 if we've got it. We'll have to look at the budget and see. But I make a motion that we do that as well.
I'll second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
And I think the town of Old Fort owes Mayor Little a thank you for the work that he did back in the 70s and dug it back up and got it, got it back to the town. And
Thank you.
And that was just incredible that all fell in place like it did. I've read about it several times, and it's just amazing. And I appreciate you doing that back then and all the work you've done since then.
Thank you.
I know it's a passion for you. And I've only lived here for about 10 years, but I've really fell in love with the guys and with everything around town. But I just want to thank you.
Well, you're very kind. I appreciate that. The last time I was in this building, it didn't look nearly as magnificent as it does. This is beautiful. The last time I was in here was in 1976, in the early spring or late winter. Y'all probably weren't even born, some of you in there. And I was still a law school student at Wake Forest. I hadn't even moved here yet. But because of the paper that I had written, I guess through Binky Adams, probably, I was invited to be one of the speakers at the 1976 rededication ceremony of the geyser after it was renovated. I had submitted the request to the state to put a historical marker that's out there at the corner of Mill Creek Road and Old 70. And it was approved, but they wrote me back and said, but we're not going to cast it and put it up until the water is flowing again. So it was about 3 years later. And anyway, I don't want to get all this, but it's been a passion. You're right, Mr. Carlton. And I've loved every bit of it. I've been an advocate for Old Fort just as much as I've been an advocate for Marion.
Well, if you all have not seen his presentation that he does during railroad days, it's just an awesome portrayal that he does, and I recommend it to everybody if they get a chance. You look it up online or whatever, but it's just fascinating.
Thank you.
And I will say this is probably going to generate a good deal of publicity, so very favorable publicity for the town. And there were actually two Warren Wilson professors that did an article on an internet site about the Swannanoa. There's a song, Swannanoa Tunnel. It's a lot of bluegrass groups do it, but about the origins of that song, which really came from these laborers who were working up the mountain, that they actually wrote that song. It's what they call a hammer song, as they hammered away on that mountain to take the railroad up. So it's gotten incredible amount of attention, and so I think just the moment that we're in, that this is coming. So just to give you a heads up that you may be getting phone calls, from the press.
If I could say one last little thing. About 5 years ago, when one of the steam engines was coming through the area and we would come up the mountain, it was well publicized, and it came on a Saturday and a Sunday, 2 days in a row. I went on a Sunday afternoon, and I took my tripod, and I was going to get some pictures from the geyser area as well. And I got out there about 2 hours before it was supposed to come, and there were about 100 people there ahead of me, already setting up with their stuff. So I got a spot and got my tripod set up, and the guy beside me was more excited than I was, and that's pretty hard to beat, quite frankly. And he was just beside himself, and we were talking a little bit. And he said, my buddies back home were so jealous that I got to come to Old Fort, North Carolina. I wanted to come to Old Fort for decades, and to come to Andrews Geyser, this is the trip of a lifetime. And my buddies couldn't come. And I said, well, where are you from? And he said, Lincoln, Nebraska. So for him, Old Fort was his ultimate destination because of the railroad. So, wow. That impressed me a lot.
Good story.
So people know about Old Fort a great deal more than we would even imagine. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our list, under new business, we have the proclamation for the Overdose Awareness Day coming up
August 31st.
August 31st, right. Gentlemen,
I make a motion.
Second.
all those in